So, how much is enough? Hi, my name is Jim, and I was retired. When I lost my job 5 years ago, 1 month before I turned 59, one question dominated the moment. How much is enough? Did I have enough in retirement savings to say I was retired? Or was I fired and I had to look for another job? If you're facing a similar state, please follow the video and I'll share some of the insights I use to decide how much is enough. Before I begin, I should explain that I am not a financial planner and I have no special credentials. So take this video as entertaining ideas from one educated consumer to another. Always do your own due diligence, seek out professional counsel when necessary, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below if this topic is of interest to you. If you're suddenly retired before your planned retirement age, how do you know you've saved enough? That was the question I faced 5 years ago. Unfortunately, I had followed some of the advice that I shared in my last video. We had an emergency cash fund of about 3 years of expenses. We had paid down debt and especially retired our mortgage well before I retired. And we had used that extra money each month that used to go to mortgage payments to max out retirement savings contributions. As a bonus, I had not only contributed to a traditional 401k, but I had also contributed after-tax dollars to a Roth 401k. So I retired with a mix of traditional 401k and IRA tax-deferred accounts, taxable accounts for my emergency savings and brokerage accounts, and tax-free Roth 401k savings. But was all of that accumulated savings enough to fund our retirement, especially since it was beginning about 6 years before I had planned it to start? I thought so, but at my wife's insistence, we sought out 3 professional reviews of our financial plans. The first was from a financial planning firm that my employer had hired as an employee benefit to all employees. And I had the option to use their services during the separation period for a few weeks. My second review came from my Schwab broker, where I had an IRA and a brokerage account. And for my third review, I went to a Northwestern Mutual life insurance agent who was also a chartered financial consultant. All 3 plans began with an inventory of all of our assets saved for retirement. That included 401ks and IRAs, our emergency savings and brokerage accounts, and the equity in our house. All the planners also considered what kind of Social Security my wife and I would receive at age 62, at our full retirement age, and at 70. And all 3 considered a small pension I would begin to receive at 65. All 3 plans considered how much we thought we needed to spend each year in retirement. And finally, all 3 considered how long we needed our retirement to last. Or a more polite way of saying, how long would my wife and I expect to live? I should point out that none of these 3 plans were fee-only financial planners. A lot of people recommend fee-only financial planners because they are required to give unbiased fiduciary advice to you. They cannot earn commissions on any of the products they recommend. However, I didn't pay for any of these 3 plans. I chose to take the advice of trusted advisors, knowing that each would come from a different perspective. And of course, the broker recommended that I consolidate IRAs at a single brokerage account, which I did. And the life insurance agent recommended that I use the cash value in a permanent life insurance plan to fund a long-term care policy, which I also did. But I acted as my own fiduciary and made my final decisions. All three plans included Monte Carlo simulations to run all of the numbers through a myriad scenarios. They take a look at the probability in all those cases of success for your retirement plan. And fortunately, all three plans said that I had a high probability of success. And so I had saved enough for retirement. Now, going through that process has taught me a little bit about how these models work. And I've developed some spreadsheets that I use to keep me on track. And I've also discovered a few online tools where I can occasionally go out and pop in some numbers to see if I'm on track. I'm going to share some of those online tools with you, and I'll put some links to them in the notes below. I would recommend that if you ever are in a situation like I was, where you're suddenly retired, seek out the advice of a trusted advisor, whether it be a fee-only planner or just somebody you trust, to get a good detailed review of your plans. But let's take a look at a few of these online tools that may give you a start.
All right, so here's the first tool that I'll share with you from FFCalcs.com. I'm going to use a hypothetical 59-year-old male who's retiring and planning for a retirement lifespan of 31 years. Bottom-up estimate of expenses is $95,000 a year, and that works out to $7,917 in monthly expenses. It requires that you put in a monthly income, but if Social Security and a pension hasn't started yet, you have to enter something here that's discounted to reflect that you're not going to get those for the full 31 years. I'm going to ballpark a number here of just $4,000 as an estimate in a planning modeling. It allows you to adjust inflation and the rate of return. Let's say it's 4%, and that the inflation is, rather than the 3% average over the last 50 years, let's say it's closer to the FOMC target for inflation. You can see that the money will run out in 47 years, well more than 31 years that you're planning. Now let's take a look at another model. So Vanguard has its own retirement nest egg calculator, and I'm going to use the same scenario of a 59-year-old man planning for 31 years of a retirement with about $1.5 million in savings. Now this allows you to put in asset allocations. I'm going to do that first here. I'm going to base this on 110 minus an age, 59, to give you 51% stocks. Since I'm on the record as having 3 years worth of cash on hand, that's 20%, and then the balance is bonds. This one has one thing for spending, and it doesn't allow you to add in Social Security or pension. So let's say you were trying to pull out all $95,000 worth of expenses from your nest egg, and then you run the simulation. And you can see that's not a very pretty picture for success. But now let's go in and make an assumption that you're going to require some Social Security and pensions for some of your expenses, and the balance is what you will withdraw from your nest egg. And let's say that is closer to $60,000, which is also close to the 4% rule. And then you run the scenario, and you get a much better result of 89% success. This website also shows you projected savings balance and gives you a range of potential outcomes, and explains what Monte Carlo simulation is, and it's a pretty good model. It's not fully detailed, but it'll work. Mutual of Omaha also has a simple tool that you can use, and we'll plug in the same basic information about our 59-year-old early retiree who has $1.5 million in savings built up. So we'll add that there. And we'll say let's say it's a 5% return, and that we plan to withdraw the 60,000 a year from our previous model, recognizing Social Security and pension will contribute something towards the 95,000 of estimated expenses. Let's also recommend that this withdrawal may inflate with inflation, about 2%, and let's assume that our retiree is in a 25% tax bracket. Then you calculate the results, and it shows that this money will last past the maximum of 30 years displayed here. Again, our planner was trying to plan for 31 years, but as you can see, the ending balance will make sure that he's got 31 years that can come out of his retirement savings. Now, here's a different take on the retirement planning question of how much is enough from engagingdata.com. And it's going to show that you're more likely to be dead than red in your retirement scenarios. And that is, your probability of death is going to be higher than going broke. And let's enter the same figures. This is a little bit more detailed than the past scenarios, but I'll enter the same 59-year-old male planning 31 years of retirement with 1.5 million in savings, spending about $95,000 a year. It has some keys in here for flexibility of spending. Can you reduce your expenses by 5% if you don't hit a certain percentage? It asks the average tax rate and includes investment fees, which is a very important consideration. I'm putting in 0.25 because we're favoring index funds. If you've got investment fees that are 1%, you'd be surprised how much that's going to add up over 31 years of retirement. I'm going to use the same scenario of asset allocation of 51% stock, 29% bond, and 20% cash. This model allows you to put in some extra income for Social Security and a pension, and I'm going to assume a $34,000 pension that begins at age 65 and $44,000 in Social Security that begins at 70. Life expectancy is at 90, so I'm going to put that 90 in there. It also allows you to add in an added expense, an extra expense. I'm not going to do that here, but if you are planning to fund a world safari, you might plug in that expense and plug in a start and end date. It could be medical. You want to see what happens if you have 6 years worth of long-term care in the middle of your retirement, what would happen. But you run this scenario and shows you this little chart that says that you have an 86% success rate, and that at your life expectancy of 82, you are more likely to be dead, 52%, than broke, 2%. So now if a B isn't up to your A level, let me give you one more thought to think about. The person has a house and it's got $250,000 worth of equity, and that's also included in the mix now. Change that to 750, and then you have a 100% success rate. So something to consider. But again, at age 82, you're still 52% more percent chance of being dead, even if you only have a 0% chance of being broke.
In the end, whether you have enough can only be an educated guess. You can't know how long you will live. You can't know what future taxes will look like. You can't know what inflation in the markets will look like. All you can do is put in best guesses and plan accordingly. So after the shock of a job loss or illness that may make your retirement come sooner than expected, do these following things. First, take a look at all of your assets. Begin with the 401k from your last employer. The rule of 55 says that as long as you're 55, upon separation from your last employer, you have access to those funds without a 10% penalty. All other IRAs can only be withdrawn after the age of 59 and a half. Take a look at your emergency savings and brokerage accounts. Those are taxable accounts, and you'll have access to those before any retirement funds. Also take a look at your home equity. If you've paid off your mortgage, all of the equity is yours. If not, how many more years do you have? How much equity do you own, and how much does the bank own? Could you potentially refinance to gain any added equity out of your house? Second, look at all of the fixed income that you can expect in your retirement. Begin with a pension. Find out when is the earliest payable date for a pension and what is the maximum payout, usually at age 65. Since this is a lifetime income, it may make sense to wait for a full pension benefit at 65. Do you have a My Social Security account? Go to ssa.gov and set up your own My Social Security account. You'll get your own personalized benefit summary of what you can expect to get at 62, at your full retirement age, and at 70. Make sure that you go into your earnings history, and in the estimates, if you are retired, make sure that you put zeros from there to 62 and your full retirement age. Tell the Social Security estimator online that you don't expect any future earnings. Otherwise, they'll use your last earning as an estimate and plug it in. You'll find out that it will overestimate what your Social Security benefit could be. Finally, figure out how much you'll get if you wait till 70. Benefits grow 8% a year after your full retirement age up to the age of 70. And that could be the best investment you ever make. Wait for 70. Take a look at your budget and determine a bottom-up estimate of what you will need in retirement. You may find you'll be spending less on commuting and clothing, but more on health care in your retirement years. Make sure you take out things you won't be needing to put in the budget, like added savings to your retirement accounts, since you're in retirement. But also be sure to add in things that you want to do, like a travel budget. Finally, take a look at estimates of your life expectancy. If you come from strong genes, you may find out that your retirement is going to last longer than you expected. So how long will you live? Well, the Social Security Administration's actuarial office says that a 59-year-old man can expect to live another 22.3 years. That's one way of estimating life expectancy. Or, like a lot of the plans, you could decide that 30 years is the right number for you. Or you can go to an online engine with a more detailed look at your lifespan expectations. Let me show you this Northwestern Mutual Life model that I found and see how it works.
I'm going to go back in time to 59, so I'm the same age as this person in our scenario, and I'm going to answer some of these questions and see how this works. So 59 and male. Going through and say 5'11" and 185. It asks you a question about family history. And while I have some family members that have lived to the age of 70 with no cardiovascular problems, I have to more honestly say that since my father and my brother died before the age of 70 from heart attacks, that I'm going to have to answer that. Now, blood pressure, I know my blood pressure. It's under medication and under control. And I strongly suggest if you're in retirement, make sure you go visit the doctor and get it under control. I have my shares of ups and downs. I exercise. I I'd love to say that I walk a minimum of 30 minutes 4 days a week. It's more like 2 or 3 days a week. At least I walk, but I'm going to say somewhat active. Eating habits, I'm a meataholic. I'm going to say that I have an average amount of fruits and vegetables and minimal fast and processed food. And yes, I always buckle up. I come from the insurance industry, so driving, I have no accidents and no violations in the past 3 years. I drink 3 or 4 drinks 2 times a week. Sounds like I've never smoked. I've never used drugs for recreation, just to control my blood pressure and cholesterol. And I do go for those regular checkups with the physician. So congratulations, this person can live to 82 years old. Now, for sanity and for your wife's well-being, just add another 8 years to this estimate.
Round it up to 90. If you have the financial resources, round it up to 100. Who knows, you may live that long. I plan to cover similar topics of the lessons that I've learned during my unscheduled retirement in the last 5 years. Now, if you're in the Financial Independence Retire Early program, this video series isn't for you. Those people are planning an early retirement. But if job loss or illness has suddenly launched your retirement before you expected, this series is for you. And that's why I call this series I Was Retired. But as I said before, I've discovered it's the best decision I never made. So like, subscribe, and comment below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.